Chapter 191 Reincarnation True Immortal Realm, Crossing the Myriad Worlds. Another mortal world was cleaned up? Hanju frowned. Other than the Scarlet Cloud world, were there other worlds like this? He asked with a voice transmission. How many worlds have been wiped out over the years? Mengpa replied, this is already the 10th world. Hanju remained silent, living beings of 10 worlds. The Heavenly Emperor was truly ruthless. Hanju woke up. He almost had a good impression of the Heavenly Emperor because of his kindness. From the looks of it, the Heavenly Emperor was treating only him well. There was no prodigy like Hanju in those 10 worlds. Thus, all of them were reduced to ashes. It was truly terrifying. I'm very curious. Why must we clean up the world? Hanju asked with a voice transmission. Mengpa didn't hesitate and quickly replied, if the mortal world needs to rely on the demonic path to increase its overall providence, such a world will sooner or later become a world of devils. Although the devil race has long since left the stage of being the protagonists, they have never given up. There was a great calamity 1,000,000 years ago. However, the Heavenly Court couldn't completely destroy the devils and could only restrict their development. You came to me for this? Hanju came back to his senses and said with a voice transmission, of course not. I'm just curious. Why are there so many mighty figure reincarnations in the Scarlet Cloud world? Mengpa smiled and said, you're thinking too much. There are as many mighty figures in the upper world as there are hairs on a cow. Every day, countless mighty figures die and return from the reincarnation cycle. The providence that the Scarlet Cloud world absorbs is actually already considered low. So far, the Scarlet Cloud world only has a few reincarnations of immortal emperors. There's only one mighty figure who has surpassed the Immortal Emperor realm. 300 years ago, the other mortal worlds even encountered the reincarnation of a Zenith Heaven realm cultivator. The providence of the entire world soared. All living beings enjoyed the fortune brought by the Zenith Heaven mighty figure. The mighty figure who had surpassed the Immortal Emperor realm was probably Chu. Hanju realized his mistake. He looked at the immortal world from the perspective of a mortal world, but he didn't realize it was bigger than all the mortal worlds combined. Were there really as many golden immortals as dogs and true immortals roaming everywhere? Hanju couldn't help but retort internally. If Tu Linger reaches the Mahayana realm, don't let her join the Heavenly Court. Mengpa sent him a voice transmission. Hanju asked, don't join the Heavenly Court as in, don't ascend? Yes, with her potential, she will definitely be chosen by the Heavenly Court. Only if her potential is poor will she be chosen by the cultivation sections. Sure. Hanju agreed readily. Although the Netherworld was controlled by the Heavenly Court, Mengpa clearly had selfish motives. It was fine as long as Hanju didn't become enemies with the Heavenly Emperor. Hanju only wanted to cultivate properly. He continued to look at the ghosts in front of the Bridge of Forgetfulness and stopped disturbing Mengpa. This scene was truly spectacular. His gaze suddenly landed on a ghost. With his cultivation level as a heaven immortal, he could see through the person's past life. This person looked familiar. Senior, please let this ghost be reborn with a good life. Hanju sent a voice transmission to Mengpa and sent her the aura of the ghost. Mengpa immediately agreed. Hanju looked at it for a while and then shook his head with a smile. The ghost was named Yang Luo 6 lifetimes ago. He was once an outer sect deacon of the Jade Pure Sacred Sect and was also the inner sect disciple who had brought Hanju in. After 1,000 years, Yang Luo was no longer Yang Luo. Hanju had forgotten to get him a foundation establishment pill back then. Today, he would return the favor. Hopefully, he would surpass foundation establishment, refine the golden core, and become a nascent soul expert in his next life. After returning to the connate cave abode, Hanju detected Zhou Mingyue's location. This kid was kneeling at the foot of the mountain. After the immortal god calamity passed, more people knelt at the foot of the mountain than before. Zhou Mingyue was wearing the robe of an inner sect disciple. His face was feminine, and he had rosy lips and white teeth. He was good-looking and resembled a girl dressed in men's clothing, but he was indeed a man. Should Hanju take him in? He hesitated. After careful thought, it was impossible for the great sage equaling heaven to reincarnate into the Scarlet Cloud world by chance. How could an existence who had offended the Heavenly Emperor be reincarnated so casually? Could it be arranged by the Heavenly Emperor? Forget it, I'll take him in. The more experts I nurture, the better. If the Heavenly Emperor asks, I'll pretend not to know. And oh, one knew that he had a system. Hanju decided to let Shushuren accept Zhou Mingyue as his disciple. The Supreme Buddha had snatched his disciple. When Buddha Bodhi investigated, he would also find trouble with the Supreme Buddha. After thinking about it, Hanju closed his eyes and cultivated. He would first test Zhou Mingyue for a few decades. He lacked determination. Hanju wouldn't accept him even if he was the reincarnation of the Heavenly Emperor. 20 years later, Hanju finally broke through to the perfected reincarnation Heaven Immortal Realm. He couldn't help but sigh. Breaking through in the Heaven Immortal Realm was really slow. How long would he take when he reached the true Immortal, Golden Immortal, and Immortal Emperor realms? He didn't think too much and continued to consolidate his cultivation. About 4 years later, Hanju began to break through. Tao Comprehension Sword was expelled from his cave abode. Master broke through again. The black hell chicken asked with wide eyes. No one visited. Hanju wouldn't have chased Tao Comprehension Sword out. Tao Comprehension Sword snorted. I've recently cultivated a sword Tao. Let's spar. Come on. Am I afraid of you? The black hell chicken accepted the challenge. I can't defeat Fong Liang and Morong Chi, but against a grass like you, then. The black hell chicken was defeated. The two golden crows couldn't help but laugh at it. The three-headed Wyrm king felt a sense of danger. Even this grass spirit is so talented. If this continued, he would be surpassed sooner or later. Shushuren stared at Tao Comprehension Sword in deep thought. For some reason, Tao Comprehension Sword Tao left him in a daze. Half a year later, Hanju successfully broke through to the early stage of the reincarnation true immortal realm. His dermic powers soared and his soul transformed. Hanju almost couldn't help but roar, awesome. He immediately checked his attributes panel. Name, Hanju. Lifespan, 1191/37,800,531. Race, Immortal. Cultivation, early stage of the reincarnation true immortal realm. He had more than 30 million years of lifespan, close to 40 million years. What did they mean by a sense of security? This was a sense of security. Hanju smiled proudly. He had only gone through 0.003% of his life. Life was truly long. Detected that you have reached the reincarnation true immortal realm. You have the following choices. 1. Immediately ascend and become famous. You can obtain a supreme treasure and a mystical power inheritance. 2. Don't ascend for the time being. Stay away from conflict. You can obtain a supreme treasure. Seeing this, Hanju chose the second option without another word. Become famous in the immortal world just as a true immortal. Courting death, even immortal emperors died. No, in fact, even Zenith Heaven cultivators reincarnated. Hanju didn't dare to go to the immortal world now. You chose not to ascend for the time being and obtained a supreme treasure. Congratulations on obtaining a supreme grade grand unity supreme treasure heavy bright purple chi boots. Heavy bright purple chi boots, supreme grade grand unity supreme treasure. Increases movement speed and can easily travel through the myriad worlds. Not bad. Hanju wasn't too surprised. He didn't want to cross the worlds for the time being. He continued to consolidate his cultivation. Half a year later, he took out the Book of Misfortune and started the daily missions. After cursing all his enemies, he stood up and walked out of the cave abode in satisfaction. Seeing that Zhou Mingyue was still kneeling at the foot of the mountain, Hanju asked Shushuren to fetch him. When the others heard that, they knew Hanju wanted to take in another disciple. After interacting with him for so long, they all realized that those who could join Hanju were all talented. Could it be Tao Comprehension Sword was excited and prayed that it was a female disciple. Chapter 192 Powerful Divine Palace. Times have changed. Tao Comprehension Sword was disappointed when Shushuren brought Zhou Mingyue up the mountain. Although he looked like a woman, his aura was that of a man. Zhou Mingyue was very excited. He had finally obtained the recognition of an immortal god. He had been kneeling for more than 20 years. How many decades could a person live? The black hell chicken, Tu Linger, the three-headed Wyrm king. and the others surrounded Zhou Mingyue and carefully sized him up. To be taken in by Hanju, he was definitely not a mortal. Hanju stood under the tree and didn't pay attention to him. Xu Shuren brought Zhou Mingyue to kneel down before him. From today onwards, he will be your disciple. You will teach him, Hanju said expressionlessly. Upon hearing this, Xu Shuren was stunned. Zhou Mingyue was also stunned. He hurriedly said, I want to take you as my master. I don't want this mortal as my master. Xu Shuren frowned. The black hell chicken smiled. This mortal is already a void amalgamation realm cultivator. Are you sure you don't want to accept him? Zhou Mingyue widened his eyes and looked at Xu Shuren in disbelief. The void amalgamation realm was extremely far away for golden core realm cultivators. He didn't expect that the white-haired old man who looked like an ascetic was such an expert. Wait, if Xu Shuren was so strong, then, Zhou Mingyue looked at Hanju with a burning gaze. Hanju said, if you don't want to, then leave the mountain. Zhou Mingyue was shocked and quickly agreed. At this point, the first fourth-generation disciple of the Cultivate diligently become Immortal Mountain appeared. Hanju ignored him and began to observe the Fusang tree. Xu Shuren pulled Zhou Mingyue away and began the master-disciple ceremony. Xu Shuren was still looking forward to Zhou Mingyue. After all, he was his first disciple. After watering the Fusang tree with immortal water, Hanju returned to the connate cave abode to continue cultivating. He first improved his Sword Dao mystical power. It had been a long time since he had come to the Sword Dao river. Hanju missed Zhang Gushing a little. This time, he didn't reveal his cultivation level. Instead, he disguised it as a heaven immortal. Zhang Gushing was suspected to be related to the divine palace, and it wasn't on good terms with the heavenly court. Now, Hanju couldn't casually show his cultivation to him. What if he was stabbed in the back? Seeing Zhang Gushing again, Hanju smiled and greeted him. Zhang Gushing asked, you joined the heavenly court? So direct, Hanju said, not really. I haven't entered the heavenly court yet. I'm still in the mortal world. What do you mean? You don't plan to ascend? Since the heavenly emperor didn't clean up the mortal world, that means that he has already acknowledged you. Why did you give up this opportunity? I just feel that the heavenly court's situation is troublesome and the upper world is dangerous. I want to stay in the mortal world to cultivate and stay away from trouble. If you keep evading it, it's impossible for you to become an immortal emperor. You might be able to become a golden immortal through cultivation alone, but if you want to become an immortal emperor, you have to experience the mortal world and fight for Providence. Only then can you become an immortal emperor. By then, as long as a trace of your soul remains, even the cycle of reincarnation can't erase you. Zhang Gushing was very serious. Hanju smiled and said, then, I'll wait until I reach the golden immortal realm. His potential was top-notch, and he cultivated an immortal emperor cultivation technique. There was really no need for him to cause trouble everywhere. He became the stepping stone of some protagonist. Wouldn't all his efforts be in vain? Just the Scarlet Cloud world had so many heaven-defying figures, let alone the thousands of other mortal worlds. The upper world was even more terrifying than imagined. Even the powerful heavenly emperor didn't dare to act recklessly in the heavenly court. Hanju felt that he himself was smart, but he was not completely unscrupulous in his calculations and schemes. Instead of going to the heavenly court and competing with the rest, it was better to cultivate in the mortal world in peace and not threaten anyone. Zhang Gushing shook his head and laughed. He suddenly thought of something and said, although the matter of the demon saint wreaking havoc in the heavenly court has ended, there might be a change soon. The demon saint is the great sage of the demon race, having led 1,000,000 demon soldiers to fight a bloody battle. In the end, the ones who benefited were the Buddhists. This made the demon race and the demon court very dissatisfied. There might be a huge change in the upper world. Was this not over? Hanju teased. Could it be that the Buddhist sect is planning to let the people of the demon court and heavenly court participate in the journey to the west and set up many obstacles along the way, using the travelers to slay demons and devils and promote the greatness of the Buddhist sect? Zhang Gushing asked in surprise, are you really immortal without a prominent previous life? Hanju was stunned. Did he guess correctly, that the journey to the west was not fabricated? A long time ago, the Buddhist sect indeed had such a grand plan, and they succeeded. That's why they are so powerful today. The Tao sect also retired because of this. However, later on, the 5 great Buddhas had a disagreement and even fought, causing the Buddhist sect to weaken drastically. This also gave the Divine Palace a chance to rise. The Divine Palace is the fastest rising power in the upper world. It's also the force with the most immortal emperors. Hanju was shocked, the force with the greatest number of immortal emperors. Crap, am I on the wrong side? It seemed that the Divine Palace had a better future. However, Murongchi had a grudge against the Divine Palace. Even if he went there, he might not be treated so well. I can't think like that. I need to cherish what I have. Hanju adjusted his state of mind. The two of them chatted for a while more before he bid farewell and left. And the following year, Hanju came to the Sword Dao River several times as if he was visiting home. 7 years later, Taoist 9 Cauldrons came to visit him. Several decades had passed since the immortal god calamity. Although the world was no longer in a heated discussion, everyone still remembered this matter, especially in the cultivation world. The Jade Pure Sacred Sect had been deified because of Han Jue. In the past few years, the Jade Pure Sacred Sect had rapidly expanded. Taoist 9 Cauldrons, Lu Bumi, Huang Zuantian, and the other upper echelons of the sect were busy. What is it? Hanju asked with a smile. Taoist 9 Cauldrons was already a body integration realm cultivator, but he was clearly very nervous when facing Hanju. This was a terrifying mighty figure that even an immortal god couldn't defeat. To put it bluntly, Hanju was the Jade Pure Sacred Sect's ancestor. If the sect cultivators were asked to choose between the two of them, no one would choose him. Hanju was already the faith of the cultivators in the Jade Pure Sacred Sect. Do you remember Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou? Taoist 9 Cauldrons asked. Hanju nodded. Taoist 9 Cauldrons continued. These two met again and even fought with many holy lands. They offended more and more people. Some people even invited our sect to besiege them. Do you think Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou were some of Hanju's few good friends? Taoist 9 Cauldrons knew about them, so he specially came to ask him. Hanju replied, "Do as you deem fit." After so many years, they're no longer disciples of the Jade Pure Sacred Sect. Don't always think that they are related to me. If they act recklessly and are really evil, we should eliminate them. After 1,000 years, many things had changed. People changed every few years, let alone 1,000 years. Although their favorability towards Hanju didn't decrease, he didn't owe them anything. Everyone had their own life. Hanju didn't want to care too much unless he had a karmic debt to them. I understand. Taoist 9 Cauldrons replied and told him about the situation of the sect. Hanju didn't want to be in charge and didn't give any opinion. After he left, Hanju took out the Heavenly Dao token, wanting to see what Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou were up to recently. Soon, his expression changed. These two. Chapter 193 Undying Emperor, Divine Eye of Reincarnation. The setting sun was blood red. The wasteland was covered in cracks and canyons. On a steep cliff sat two figures. T was Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou. The two of them meditated side by side as if they were cultivating some cultivation technique. A ball of black chi floated above their heads. Hanju sensed the aura of a true immortal. Grand Unity True Immortal. How could there be a second Grand Unity True Immortal in the Scarlet Cloud world? Hanju immediately felt that he had been robbed. Without another word, he moved behind Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou. With a wave of his sleeve, he swept away the black aura. Immediately after, Hanju came to the other side of the world with no one around. He raised his right hand, and the black aura from before appeared in his palm. Fellow Taoist, I didn't cause harm to your mortal world. A cold voice came from the black aura. He didn't panic at all when Hanju grabbed him. The Undying Emperor has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 3 stars. Undying Emperor. It sounded very scary. Hanju immediately checked his information through his interpersonal relationships. Undying Emperor, Mid-Stage Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm, Immortal Emperor of the Upper World. He was attacked by the immortal emperors of the Divine Palace and died. After 1,000,000 years, he finally recultivated to the Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm. The Undying Emperor used his mystical power to split thousands of soul thoughts in search for his successor in the myriad worlds. He wanted to create a huge faction like the Divine Palace. Because you interfered with his plan, he developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, 3 stars, Immortal Emperor. Hanju was shocked upon a closer look. It was just a soul thought. What was he afraid of? His soul thought alone had the cultivation of a true immortal. The Undying Emperor was quite something, Hanju snorted. Invading the Heavenly Court's mortal world is against the heavenly rules. I'll tell Senior deities by now. The Undying Emperor hurriedly shouted, fellow Taoist. We can discuss. 123.25.42.227 How? The 2 people you chose are my children. Don't you think you're going overboard? The Undying Emperor cursed. No wonder those 2 brats were so tough. They had an immortal backing them up. The Undying Emperor fell silent. Hanju was also hesitating if he should fall out with him. The Undying Emperor said, fellow Taoist, this is my fault. I won't come again. Let go of my soul thought. Hanju thought for a moment. Even if he crushed this soul thought, he couldn't kill the other party. Why deepen his hatred, then leave? Hanju let go of the black aura and secretly sneaked in the 6 paths insignia. The black aura quickly fled the scarlet cloud world. After confirming that his aura had disappeared, Hanju returned to the Cultivate diligently become Immortal Mountain. Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou didn't notice any of this. Many years later, they finally realized that the mighty figure who had wanted to take them in as disciples had truly vanished. After returning to the connate cave abode, Hanju took out the Book of Misfortune and started to do his daily missions. Several months later, he finally cursed the Undying Emperor. In that case, the Undying Emperor should not suspect him. After all, the Undying Emperor had thousands of soul thoughts and countless enemies. After cursing, Hanju took out the Heavenly Tao token and told deities about the Undying Emperor, in case he didn't give up. Undying Emperor? This fellow is actually still alive. Deitai's voice sounded from the token. Hanju asked, will he come again? I will report this to His Majesty. After all, the Undying Emperor was an immortal emperor. Don't worry, he won't appear again. Hanju only felt relieved after receiving Deities' guarantee. Tao Comprehension Sword asked curiously, who is the Undying Emperor? Hanju didn't hide anything and told her about the realms above the Mahayana realm. Tao Comprehension Sword turned pale. There's always someone stronger. We're still very weak and can't be careless. I, your master, have many enemies. I need you to work hard to become stronger. You can save my life at the critical moment, Hanju said seriously. Tao Comprehension Sword nodded solemnly. Her mind filled with danger, she continued to cultivate the heavenly sword Tao. Hanju nodded in satisfaction. He began to cultivate the 6 paths of reincarnation technique. After breaking through to the reincarnation true immortal realm, his cultivation technique became increasingly unfathomable. Hanju couldn't master it in a short period of time. However, he had a long lifespan and was in no hurry. 17 years later, Hanju finally mastered the true immortal chapter of the 6 paths of reincarnation technique. His cultivation speed increased greatly, and he also comprehended a new mystical power, Divine Eye of Reincarnation. It could see through the past and present lives of living beings. After killing enemies, it could absorb the providence accumulated by the enemy's past and present lives. It was extremely domineering. This mystical power was very useful. But Hanju didn't want to absorb providence everywhere for the time being. Hanju continued to cultivate to increase his cultivation level. He wanted to reach the middle stage of the true immortal realm as soon as possible. After reaching the true immortal realm, the speed of his breakthroughs clearly slowed down. His chi absorption speed was far faster than before. However, the immortal chi needed to break through in this realm was too huge. Hanju checked the emails while cultivating. Your good friend Ji Xianchen has comprehended the heavenly Tao truth beside the heavenly river. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your good friend Divine General has left the immortal world. Your grand disciple Morong Chi accidentally entered the ancient mystic realm and mastered an eternal mystical power. Your good friend Huang Jihao was attacked by demon beasts, X249983. Your good friend Imo Fuzhou was bewitched by the devil ancestor and developed mental demons. Your grand disciple Feng Liang received guidance from an immortal god in his dream. Your good friend Long Shan has comprehended a grand unity mystical power and his cultivation has increased greatly. Nothing much happened, however. Hanju noticed that Feng Liang was being guided by an immortal. What's going on? Someone from the heavenly court wanted to rob him of his disciple as well. Hanju frowned. He had to ask him about this when Feng Liang returned. Hanju read for a while and then went back to cultivating. Half a year later, Fairy Shishen returned and took the initiative to look for him. Hanju told Dao Comprehension Sword to leave the cave abode and spend some time alone with Fairy Shishen. I obtained a letter in a mystic realm. I can use it to join a cultivation sect in the upper world. Do you want to go? Fairy Shishen asked. After sitting down, Hanju's relationship with the heavenly court was not publicized. Everyone only knew that the heavenly court no longer targeted the mortal world. Hanju took the letter and read it. It was a sect called Heavenly Dipper Island. It had been established for hundreds of thousands of years and had a deep foundation. The Heavenly Dipper Island's master had ascended from the Scarlet Cloud world and had always missed his hometown. Hanju said, "Do you want to go?" "I don't want to ascend for the time being." Fairy Shishen shook her head and said, "With my cultivation level, I'll be courting death if I ascend." "Then keep it. If you want to ascend in the future, you can go there." Hanju smiled and returned the letter to her. The spirit chi of the Cultivate diligently become immortal mountain became denser. Fairy Shishen also successfully broke through to the void amalgamation realm. The problem of her lifespan was no longer a concern. For Changyuer, who was in seclusion all year round, she was already close to the void amalgamation realm. Fairy Shishen asked curiously, "You plan to stay in the mortal world?" Hanju nodded. Fairy Shishen wanted to say something but hesitated. She wanted to persuade Hanju, but on second thought, his potential was not something she could imagine. Why should she worry? The two of them chatted for a while before Fairy Shishen left. Hanju was about to call Dao Comprehension Sword back in when a voice entered his ears. "Hanju, I've already broken through to the Grand Unity True Immortal Realm. Do you dare to fight me in the void?" This voice sounded familiar. "Hey, isn't that the son of the Heavenly Emperor, Long Shan?" Hanju frowned. "Why is this kid here?" Long Shan's voice sounded again. "Don't worry, it's just a spar. No matter if you win or lose, I won't make things difficult for you." Chapter 194 Su Qi's Ascension, Emperor's Death. Hanju sighed. After sending Ji Xianchen away, Long Shan came instead. Was this fate? Hanju thought for a moment but still stood up. After cultivating for decades, it was not bad to go out and fight occasionally. Long Shan had a good impression of him and should not be tricking him. He probably really wanted to fight. Hanju had relied on Long Shan to rise up. This time, he naturally couldn't hold back. If he lost to Long Shan, it meant that his talent was inferior to Long Shan's. What would the Heavenly Emperor think of him? Hanju still hoped to cultivate in peace under the Heavenly Emperor's protection. The void was illusory and without light. Hanju appeared in front of Long Shan. The two of them emitted a faint light. It was an immortal power that could allow them to survive in the void. Long Shan was still wearing silver armor. He was in high spirits and the corners of his mouth were curled up. He was very confident. "Wait, no," conceded. This was what he felt when Hanju saw him. Long Shan asked with a burning gaze, "Hanju, how's your cultivation level?" Under the concealment of the system, Hanju's cultivation level remained at the mid-stage of the reincarnation heaven immortal realm. Hanju said, "I've also reached the true immortal realm." Hearing this, Long Shan's smile froze, his eyes widened in shock. Impossible. He had suffered so much to break through to the true immortal realm. Meanwhile, Hanju was hiding in the mortal world. Really? Long Shan gritted his teeth. Hanju spread out his hands and said, "I never lie." Long Shan was silent. Hanju wasn't in a hurry to attack. After a long while, Long Shan took a deep breath and said, "I'll challenge you when I become a golden immortal. I'll definitely enter the golden immortal realm before you." With that, Long Shan vanished. Hanju was amused. He was quite sensible. That was good, too. He didn't need to suffer a greater blow. He had already copied Long Shan's cultivation level using the simulation trial. He could torture him when he returned. Green mountains and pure rivers, blue skies and white clouds, under a waterfall. Zhou Fan and Mo Fuzhou stood by the river and looked at the water surface. They were no longer the rash youths from back then. They had become very mature. Mo Fuzhou had a sense of vicissitudes while Zhou Fan had become sinister. There was a killing intent between his brows that could not be concealed. "Do you really want to do that?" Zhou Fan frowned. Mo Fuzhou said calmly, "Ji Xianchen has already ascended. Brother Han has already become an immortal god. No one in the mortal world is a match for the two of us. Why do you have to make yourself the number one in the world and fight for Providence before ascending?" Zhou Fan hesitated. He had died several times, so he had to be cautious. In the past, it had always been Mo Fuzhou who followed him and protected him. He had always felt that he owed him, so in this life, Mo Fuzhou was the priority. However, he didn't expect that after their reunion, Mo Fuzhou would become extremely crazy and ambitious. Mo Fuzhou glanced at him and said softly, "If you're afraid, then find a place to hide and cultivate. Perhaps you can be like Brother Han." This sentence agitated Zhou Fan. He had always treated Hanju as his target. He thought that going out on adventures was the true path of cultivation. He didn't expect to be left behind. It was impossible for him to imitate Hanju. Impossible. "If you want to challenge them, I'll accompany you." Zhou Fan snorted. Even if he couldn't compare to Hanju, what about the rest? Mo Fuzhou revealed a smile and said, "Very good. Let's start from the heavenly immortal manor. Didn't they want to hunt us down? We'll directly destroy them." "All right." Zhou Fan also looked forward to it. This moment, a figure walked out of the forest. It was Xian Qingjuan's junior, Xian Shushu. She protected Zhou Fan all year round. Xian Shushu looked at their backs and frowned. "Damn it, what are these two brats doing?" Xian Shushu was really tired. After following Zhou Fan for so many years, she was really tired. She suddenly wanted to ascend like her senior. She would die if she continued to follow him. The enemies Zhou Fan had provoked were already stronger than her. She might even become his burden. "Should I leave?" Xian Shushu hesitated. Xian Qingjun had asked her to follow Zhou Fan for the sake of the devils. Now that the devils couldn't make a comeback, there was no point in doing this anymore. Thinking of this, Xian Shushu silently retreated into the forest. Zhou Fan seemed to sense something. He turned around and his eyes flashed with disappointment. Understood something. However, he had his own path. He would no longer risk his life for women and let go of everything in the blink of an eye. 30 years passed. Hanju was already close to the mid-stage of the reincarnation true immortal realm. However, he had already spent more than 50 years. This stage had taken longer than any other stages he had broken through before. On this day, Suchi came to visit him. He had already broken through to the tribulation transcendence realm. His cultivation progressed very quickly. After all, he had been cultivating diligently. "Master, I want to ascend. Recently, I feel like something in the upper world is summoning me." Suchi knelt in front of him and said seriously. Hanju showed a frown, but in his mind, he heaved a sigh of relief. As Suchi became stronger, his bad luck also increased. Yang Tiandong had returned previously and even visited Suchi. However, he had encountered a mental demon and had to go out to relax. Hanju pretended to be troubled. "The upper world is very dangerous. I might not be able to protect you." Suchi smiled. "Don't worry, master. I won't cause trouble." Hanju said, "In that case, why don't you join the Dragon Immortal Island after you ascend? Taoist Danqing is a mighty figure and has countless disciples under him. This was told to me by an immortal god. Of course, if you acknowledge Taoist Danqing as your master, Don't say that you're from the Scarlet Cloud world, much less that you're my disciple." Su Qi silently noted it down and said, "Thank you for your guidance, Master. It's just nice. I have to cultivate for a period of time after I ascend." Hanju said, "Go. If you really encounter unresolvable trouble, you can seek help from the Heavenly Court." Su Qi was secretly touched. "Master is still worried about me." He kowtowed 3 times before leaving. After bidding farewell to his fellow disciples, Su Qi left the Cultivate diligently become Immortal Mountain that day. Hanju felt a strange feeling like his disciple had just graduated. However, Su Qi was the jinx of the Heavenly Court. He was tough and wouldn't die so easily. Hanju sighed, took out the Book of Misfortune, and started cursing Taoist Dan Qing. While cursing, he checked his emails. "Your good friend Di Hongye has entered the Dark Forbidden Zone. Your good friend Divine General has killed your enemy Undying Emperor. Your grand disciple Morong Qi has comprehended a grand unity mystical power. His providence has increased greatly. Your Tao companion Xian Qingjun obtained an immortal fruit by chance and her cultivation level increased greatly. Because of your curse, your enemy Vermilion Bird's cultivation has greatly decreased. His cultivation level has fallen to the loose Immortal Realm. Your Tao companion Xing Hongxian has obtained the inheritance of an ancient mighty figure. Her soul has transformed. Your good friend Huang Jihao was attacked by demon beasts. X120083." Hanju noticed that Undying Emperor was killed by Divine General. Was the Heavenly Court so efficient? He immediately checked Undying Emperor's portrait. It was still there, still alive. The information indicated that he was only left with a remnant soul. It was really tragic. Hanju was very satisfied. He could sense that the Heavenly Emperor was indeed protecting him. Chapter 195 Guanyin Scripture, Heavenly Peach Banquet. Hanju noticed that Xing Hongxian had obtained the inheritance of an ancient mighty figure and her soul had also transformed. Turned his attention to her. Xing Hongxian was still in the Taoist temple she had bumped into by chance. Previously, Chang Yuer had accompanied her. Now, she was alone. Chang Yuer wasn't as daring as she was. It was fine if she went out occasionally. Hanju had discovered a remnant soul in the statue. It had already awakened. It was an old woman in a Taoist robe. She looked different from those he had seen before. She floated above Xing Hongxuan's head and chanted the scriptures. Hanju listened quietly and felt that something was amiss. Why is it a Buddhist scripture, a Buddhist lecture in a Taoist temple? What's going on? Hanju checked Xing Hongxuan's profile picture in his interpersonal relationships. After confirming that she wasn't possessed and that her favorability didn't decrease, he was relieved. He used his divine sense to probe the remnant soul, Grand Unity Heaven Immortal Cultivation. However, it was only the realm. Her strength might not even be comparable to a loose immortal, and the soul was already a flickering candle in the wind. Hanju continued to observe. After a long time, Xing Hongxian opened her eyes and said, "Master, can this Guanyin scripture really allow me to become an immortal?" The old woman said, "Of course. Buddhism emphasizes that all living beings are equal. Anyone with any talent can become Buddha or Bodhisattva. As long as you have a firm Buddhist heart, this is your only way. Your potential is indeed mediocre. The cultivation techniques of the mortal world can't help you. I don't have much time left. I'll even give you my remnant soul. Don't forget what you promised me." With that said, the old woman's remnant soul gradually dissipated like smoke. Xing Hongxian wasn't sad. Instead, she was very calm. Hanju suddenly appeared in front of her husband. Xing Hongxian exclaimed in surprise and hurriedly stood up. In the current Scarlet Cloud world, Hanju could go wherever he wanted because he was the immortal god in charge of the heavenly Tao. Who was that just now? Hanju asked. Xing Hongxian replied, "A Buddhist cultivator from the upper world descended into the mortal world a long time ago. She died and her Tao dissipated, leaving behind only a remnant soul. She gave her cultivation technique to me, hoping that after I ascend, I can help her tell the Buddhist sect about her grudge and let them seek justice for her." Hanju asked curiously, what grudge? Xing Hongxian didn't hide anything and replied truthfully, a long time ago, the heavenly tribulation affected the mortal world. She joined forces with the heavenly court's immortal gods to come to the mortal world to clean up the devil race. In the end, she was betrayed by the immortal gods. It concerned the heavenly court. Hanju didn't think too much about it. When Xing Hongxian arrived at the Buddhist sect, who knew if it would be thousands of years or tens of thousands of years later? How are you? Hanju asked. He grabbed Xing Hongxuan's wrist and checked her body. Her spirit energy was stable, and there was no danger in her body. Xing Hongxian smiled and said, it's fine. This Guanyin scripture is indeed powerful. Husband, do you want it? You can let your female disciples cultivate it in the future. Hanju hesitated and said, that's not good. Didn't she tell you not to spread the technique? She did, but she's already gone. Besides, everything I have belongs to my husband. I'll follow the agreement and tell the Buddhist sect about her hatred. All right, let me check if this cultivation technique is dangerous, Hanju replied. In all kinds of fantasy novels, Buddhism was the most hated. It was as if all Buddhas were hypocrites and liked to brainwash others. Xing Hongxian immediately taught him the Guanyin scripture. There were no records of this cultivation technique. It was passed down verbally. Hanju started to sort it out. 113.185.41.163 The Guanyin scripture was indeed impressive. It could actually be cultivated to the grand unity true immortal realm. If mastered, one could cultivate the Guanyin Dharma body and have unparalleled divine powers. Hanju combed through it repeatedly but didn't find any traps. Continue cultivating. Hanju opened his eyes and said before leaving Xing Hongxian was already used to his straightforward personality. She meditated again and continued cultivating. Hanju smiled. After returning to the connate cave abode, Xing Hongxian also had her own fortuitous encounter. She probably wouldn't die of old age. This was also good. It won't make Hanju worry. Currently, the people around him were all very old. As long as they were willing to stay in the cultivate diligently become immortal mountain to cultivate, there would be no problem with their lifespan limit. Ever since the Fusang tree was watered with the immortal water, the spirit chi of the cultivate diligently become immortal mountain had increased greatly. He continued to cultivate. After another 11 years, he finally broke through to the mid-stage of the reincarnation true immortal realm. His dermic powers increased again. Hanju was in a good mood. He liked the feeling of breaking through. He was even more glad now that he had spent more than 10 years rerolling his providences and cultivation potential. He had persevered for more than 10 years in exchange for a lifetime of comfort. Hanju became more cautious and continued cultivating. His target was the late-stage true immortal realm. Another 3 years passed. Deities personally visited. Hanju invited him into the cave abode. It had to be said that the high officials of the heavenly court were indeed impressive. They could casually descend into the mortal world. If it were other immortals, they would be violating the heavenly rules. After Tao Comprehension's sword was chased out, Deities sat before the table and smiled. I heard that you're already a true immortal? Clearly, the heavenly emperor had already heard about Long Shan's retreat. Yes, I was lucky, Hanju said humbly. Deities stroked his beard and smiled. As expected of a prodigy personally chosen by His Majesty. You don't have to worry about the undying emperor anymore. The divine general has already killed him. Although he isn't dead, it will be very difficult for him to cause trouble in the next 1,000,000 years. 1,000,000 years was enough for him to rise. Hanju said, thank you, Heavenly Court. Thank you, Heavenly Emperor. Thank you, Divine General. The Heavenly Peach Banquet, which happens once every 10,000 years, is about to begin. There's still 100 years to go. Do you want to go? If you do, I'll give you an invitation. Hanju thought for a moment and then said, forget it. I'm afraid of trouble. Deities smiled. What trouble is there in the Heavenly Peach Banquet? Don't worry, your identity won't be made public. His Majesty won't mention you either. You're just going to enjoy the heavenly peaches and see how impressive the heavenly court is. Hanju hesitated for a moment and asked, is it the heavenly emperor's intention? Yes, consuming one peach is better than 1,000 years of cultivation. Are you willing to give it up? Alright, I'll go. Since it was the heavenly emperor's intention, he wouldn't be giving him face by rejecting. Moreover, the heavenly emperor made the divine general kill the undying emperor. It was a huge favor. The heavenly court had been helping him until now, but he hadn't done anything for them. D. Taibai smiled and said, there's a reincarnated immortal emperor in the divine palace who has awakened the Emperor Dao. When he was a Grand Unity True Immortal, he killed a Grand Unity Golden Immortal. Now, he's already a Grand Unity Golden Immortal and is very awe-inspiring. He has been conferred the title of the strongest prodigy of the younger generation by the Divine Palace. You have to cultivate well. In the future, you will definitely have to face him. You will represent the heavenly court. Hanju frowned after hearing that. So impressive? He was about to say something when D. Taibai vanished. A red token appeared on the table with the words Heavenly Peach carved on it. The Heavenly Peach Banquet in 100 years? Hanju silently wondered if the Heavenly Peach was fragrant. Then, he took out the Heavenly Dao token and sent his divine sense into it to check the Heavenly Dao tablet. He was shocked when he saw it. The Scarlet Cloud World's ranking had actually improved by hundreds.